Welcome back to the Cyber Talent Matrix. Today's episode is about something many people in cybersecurity are living through right now, and that's uncertainty. As always, I'm joined by my two amazing experts, Dr. Sasha Vanterpool and Will Denman. And today, we're also joined by Dawn Butler, a former senior leader at Citi, the host of Bytes Bits and Brilliance, Career Insights and Inspiration, and someone who has spent the past year navigating the job market after a reduction in force in August 2024. Dawn brings a rare and important perspective. She's a seasoned practitioner who has also held executive and senior leadership positions. She's been in the candidate seat, and she's been deeply reflective about what it means to move through this moment without losing your authentic self, especially as a BIPOC professional. This is a conversation about career disruption, identity, resilience, and finding comfort in the chaos. So, Dawn, thank you so much for joining our show today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Oh, we've been excited to have you on. So thank you for taking the time here. And before we go ahead and dive into the broader realities of the job market, I want to start with your story, Dawn. You've spent years in senior leadership roles, making hiring decisions, building teams, and shaping strategy. And then almost overnight, you found out that you're on the other side of the table as a candidate. So that shift, I think, gives you a perspective very few people truly have. And it's the perfect place to begin. So, could we start there? Can you walk us through your journey from senior leader to candidate and what that transition has really been like for you?
Wow. So, something that I don't share with a lot of people, so this might be a first. But Jeff, you told me to go ahead and say the things.
I
So
did.
we're gonna do that. I found out that I was getting laid off, reduction in force, restructure, whatever, while I was on leave. Now, that's not illegal, by the way. I just want to put it out there. That's not illegal. It's just that when they were ready to do that phase of the restructure, I was not actively at work. And so I did not get laid off, quote unquote, as soon as I found out. But when I got back, that's when like the reality hit. Like literally the day I went back to work, they were like, conversation, but I already knew. And I had
Mhm.
time. And I will say that there were such moments of grief around it because having worked in the corporate environment in the private sector at a bank for so long, of course I know that there's layoffs. I mean, you hear about them all the time, and there are moments when, in the teams or in your department, you hear it's going on and you're like, "Oh, they're talking about it," and everyone's sort of like, "Is it going to be me?" So it happens, but when it happens, it's still a shock, right? I saw someone post somewhere in a social media group like, "Oh, it sucks to get laid off at Christmas time," and I'm thinking it sucks to get laid off at any time. I mean, Christmas is bad, but I mean, it's bad news,
Yeah,
you know,
any time of year.
any time of the year. And I think, of course, it just depends on your situation. Some people have children, and so then that impacts like Christmas shopping and all of these things like that. But it's just not good news. And so I spent a long time grieving. I really did. But I think for me, it was exacerbated or bigger because of the tenure that I have, not only at the corporation, but as a professional. And one thing that I really wanted to do was to sit with where I am today. Like, okay, where am I? Take the opportunity, I guess you could call it, and see like where do I want to go for my future? I read this book called Life is in the Transitions, and it talks about navigating change. And I read that book on purpose because I'm navigating a change, right? And so in the book, he talks about how some disruptions, some really big things that happen in our lives sometimes cause us to look at what is meaningful in life. Now, I read that book this year, but for some reason last year, when I found out, I decided I knew what's meaningful to me. right? So this is just a natural thing that happens when we have these like big things that happen to us. Some of us sit with like, okay, what does it all mean? What am I going to do? Who am I? That was one of my other questions. Like, who
Mhm.
am I going to be? Which is crazy because I was something, right? Prior to that, I had been more than many things. And so I was like, well, who am I going to be now? Um, it could also have to do with age, right? Like at a certain age in life, you start to have those type of questions. Your mortality start looking at you like, okay, so who are you going to be? What do you want to leave your legacy? These type of things. And so that's been a lot of my journey, Jeff. Since that, eh, I want to just anyone who's listening who's navigating this, the emotional roller coaster, don't be surprised by it. Don't get mad at yourself. I remember the first few months having this weird feeling like, why are there some days when I feel relief and other days I feel so devastated? Why are there some days when I feel so excited for my future and others is like, oh my God, what's gonna happen now? It was just, and I had to tell myself, it's okay. Life can happen like this. Like you can have multiple emotions because that's what they are. They're feelings or emotions. And that doesn't indicate anything about you that's negative, right? Now, I don't know if that happens for everybody, but that's what happened for me. So I just wanted to also add that in there as you're navigating that uncertainty. That it's okay to have the emotional roller coaster. Take the time, you know. That's yeah. Oh, okay. I'm stopped.
Yeah, I mean, it's all part of processing,
Nice.
right? Like that is,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
like you spent over 2 decades at this particular corporation, so it had to have felt like not just a, shock, but also an identity crisis, if we will, right?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I could add the role that I had right before that was the second time I had managed a team. Now, the first time I managed a team, I was in my 30s. Like, so this was like over a decade ago, young 30s. And I didn't do it well. Like, I mean, I think it's typical for techies. Um, I was promoted because my boss, they wanted her to do something else. And so they said, Dawn is like, really good at this. Let's promote her, which was like, yay, thank you for seeing that. But I didn't get any management training. Like, no one said, hey, pause and this is how you become a manager and this is how you do it well. And so I didn't do very well at it. I was horrible at delegating, horrible. Okay. And I left that experience thinking, I don't ever want to manage again, which is ironic because even as a young person in my teenage and early 20s, I always knew I wanted to lead. I had been a leader in so many facets of my life, but then I had this experience at work where it was like, "Oh, I suck at this. I don't think I ever wanna do this ever again." Right? Fast forward 10 years or however many, and I have this opportunity to lead and manage again. I said, "You know what, Dawn? That was one experience. Doesn't mean all are gonna be bad." And I decided to embrace the beginner's mind. Have you all heard of that phrase, like that concept, beginner's mind?
A little bit.
It's Japanese and it's about, like, looking at things from a new perspective, like, you don't know anything, like, what is there for me to learn? And I did that. I said, "Alright, yes, I have lessons, right? There are things I don't wanna repeat, but let's see what I can learn and be as a manager." And I had the best experience as a manager. And so a part of losing that job was my team. Like, I really felt it. It's like literally, like, not getting up every day and talking with them and coaching them and helping them, solve problems and, get through ambiguity. I missed that. I think that was the biggest part of my grief. I had taken what had been a previous bad experience, right? And now this thing was just as beautiful. It was like blossom almost, right? That showed me like this desire I have to lead that's in me it actually can be good. It can actually help people. And so that was a huge part of my grief as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, appreciate you sharing that, and I think, Sasha, I'd love to get you get you to weigh in. I bet some of that kind of resonates with you. You had a similar situation, at least with being notified of but being let
Yeah.
go at a time we were supposed to have some fun. I don't want to
Yeah.
I don't want to elaborate for you, but you're more than welcome to kind of piggyback a bit here.
Yeah, so, I mean, for me, it was like I was like a paid time off. I had this PTO scheduled for, a few weeks at this time, and I had family coming to visit, and, um, I was literally on my way to an amusement park with my family and, like, on the way to have these plans that we've been looking forward to for months, and I get
Wow.
a weird email, can you meet at this time with, and I was like, what? No, I'm off. Like, my out of office is on. Like, what are you talking about?
Right.
And like really trying to get in touch with me and then getting the news like that way, like literally on the way to the amusement park. And
Yep.
so that was just like a shock and very alarming, especially when you're like supposed to be in this like fun mindset and
Yeah.
family, and then it's like, well, we already bought these tickets, so we can't not go to the park now.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it ended up being therapeutic though, because I was able to scream on roller coasters and laugh
I
and
love
try
that.
and do my best to be present in the moment, and enjoy the family that was there in town. And I think it was like a temporary relief, but when they did leave after that long weekend, I think the reality of everything hit me. And it's definitely, I think a lot of what you said with the grief, with the, even if you kind of have an idea or you do some complete shock, like it really was for me,
Mhm.
so many emotions that come with it. I think a lot of it is your identity, like you were talking about, especially when you have that 10-year at a company. And I also think it's just also the loss of your routine and your
Oh,
structure and
absolutely.
your just kind of like your sense of purpose on the day to day, and
Yep.
kind of it just throws you for such a loop. And I don't think a lot of people expect that part of it too. And I think it's very easy for those emotions. We spend so much of our time at work
Mhm.
that when that is has a rift of some kind, even if it's not a total like layoff situation. But when that's not going well, it really affects other aspects of your life, and it really kind of bleeds over into your home life, your family life. You're not motivated to, go
Mhm.
work out or do
Yep.
your hobbies, or, whatever it is that your lifestyle does. So it does really impact you on so many different levels. And I think you question, was I not good enough, or what did I do? What didn't I do? What should have I been doing? And you go down this rabbit hole, and it's a lot of emotions to process. And I think, you mentioned that, especially just with your years of experience, it's almost inevitable. But
Right.
I wish there was more resources and help and support, especially I think on the mental health, emotional side of things, and the physical health too, because it does impact you physically, I think too, when you're feeling just all these
Mhm.
stress and emotions and challenges. That um there should be more support out there, and there should be more like conversations about it. And so that's why I'm very grateful that you're doing this conversation with us. But um I think so many people can relate, and in different ways. But yeah, that was just kind of my also kind of relation there. So
Yep. Wow.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think
But
you're right though. It's not a taboo topic, but we treat it as a society like it's
Yes.
a taboo
Absolutely.
topic. You kind of suffer in silence, and
mhm,
because you don't, as a candidate, you don't really want to like talk about woe is me or how I feel sad about it, because
Right.
they're looking for a job. Someone hire me,
Right.
and happy and can do so much stuff.
Yes.
So it is a weird position to be in to kind of navigate that. But I think
Mhm.
to add to that, right, is this particular market we're in right now. It's one thing to
mhm,
be let go and you can quickly get back up on your feet and hop right into another company and continue to do great things. But right now the market's pretty tough. And in our previous episodes, Don, we had talked about on our show kind of the talent gap, and these open positions versus the supply. And we've been pretty candid on our show that we kind of think a lot of it's just bullshit. There's something mismatched. There's a
Yeah.
misalignment happening in organizations. There's talent hiring process, problems that we're seeing. But we're sitting on this side at SkillRex doing this work, for companies when we're looking at skills and all that other stuff. We're not sitting on the bench, and you
Mhm.
are. And I think that's one reason we really wanted you to come on the show, because we can talk about the labor market all we want here, but we're not the ground reality of it. You are, and you have that perspective. And I'd love to kind of hear from you a little bit about, like, what has it been like looking for jobs, applying to jobs, and that whole entire process, when you've gone through that, step back and kind of accept the situation, and you're kind of ready to move forward again.
Hmm. I think that's a good thing that you pointed out there, Jeff, like that step back and you're ready. Because I recognized a few months in that I wasn't ready. I was just like, I cannot interview like this. The grief, my confidence was shaken, even though I knew it had nothing to do with me, right? It's still, it happens, right? And so there was
Mhm.
a point in time and I was like, oh, Dawn, you cannot talk to anybody.
Oh,
Like, you're not ready, right? And so that was a big deal for me. And so that might separate me from some other people, right, who go right back in. I didn't. I needed a moment. I really, really did. Um, I look back sometimes, I'm like, geez, was that the right decision? But I do know that even if I had been interviewing, I don't think I would have come off as the best version of me, and no one wants to hear your woe is me story. That's just the truth. They don't. That's our reality, but they don't interviewing you for 25 minutes to hear that stuff. You know what I mean? And so I think that's a reality. I was blessed to have some room. Okay. We won't go into all the how's that happened, but I was blessed to have a little wiggle room to take that pause. Um, the market is strange. I saw someone in a Facebook group post today say that they are going to print out their resume and they are going to Google all their local offices and they're going to go in person to the office. All right. There are people who are saying, I sent videos of myself to these jobs that I applied to. I did this, I did the next. And the thing that they, right, because I don't know who they is, they are saying is, this is what you have to do now. And I sit back and I think, geez, our technology has really messed us up. Because now people are going back to the old school way. What we did before, we could get online and apply to a job. You know what I mean? They're like, I better start. I forget there was a phrase I used to use back in the day when we didn't have it, like something about walking or your boots or something like that. Something, like go. Now, will that person be successful? I don't know. Security and all that stuff like that. I don't know if that's going to go over, but I was like, hey, let us know how it goes.
Yeah, they're being
'Cause-
creative, thinking outside the box. You gotta give them that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, the technology that's in place somehow, and I think that's just one piece of it, is just messing us up. Like
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I
screening
think that's a
people out.
piece. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
But it's
screening
like the
people out.
technology and the competition, right? Like, when I
Oh, yeah.
hear you
Oh,
say
yeah, yeah,
that,
yeah.
in my head, I'm thinking
Thousands of
about,
people are applying to a job at a
yeah,
time because,
I
well, people have taken advantage of the fact that there's so many people on the market, and they're like, "Oh, let me apply to 50 jobs for you automatically," which is great. That's a
mhm,
huge convenience. But now that adds 50
saturated.
more saturation to a job opening, and that leaves the HR people and the hiring managers in this big conundrum that we have. Um, and so, yeah, it's very weird out there. The other thing I've been noticing, and it makes sense, right? Supply and demand economics, is the salaries are going down. So, a job that was paying 100K, everyone wanted to have a six-figure cyber job.
Yep.
At one point, that's not happening, folks.
But the
Yep.
cost
Some
of
of the
living is
salaries
going
I've
up.
seen are so low. I'm just like, oh my God, they're still paying people that today. That's what
Yeah,
I said when I saw it. Like,
sure.
you
And the
know,
cost of living now is just so expensive. And it's like
Mhm.
exactly.
they have the audacity to offer that as a salary in this city or,
Now,
like
now look, y'all, let's just be real. So these are tough moments. I've been, like trying to be creative myself. And I said, all right, maybe I need to do some upskilling or training in a certain area. And so, well, I don't make any money. So I was like, well, what's out there available for assistance, right? In terms of like programming and things like that. And I looked into one, I started talking to like the local job center or whatever, American Job Center. And they're like, oh, well, funding's going down. So we can't really pay that much. Just- and so it's like, I have been creative in the type of things I'm applying to. It's like, I guess I have to sort of expand the way I look at work. Like maybe think about doing something different just to sort of hold you over in a way. You know what I mean? That's the reality. In fact, the workforce consultant person told me that's what I need to do. They were like, "You probably shouldn't think about trying to make yourself whole again, like where you were before. You may have to accept something that's a little less." And I mean, that was tough to hear.
That's tough to hear. Yeah, because you
That
get
threw me.
established, and you get your comforts in place, and it's
Yeah.
hard to, especially when you have mortgages and
But I
whatnot.
worked
You just
very
can't like reel
hard.
those things
Yeah.
back so easily. It's
Well,
like
not just that, Jeff. I've
Yeah.
I've worked very hard to get where I
Yeah.
was.
that's right.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
It's like you've already proven your worth, right? And you've already,
Exactly.
tested your mettle.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden it's, hey, let's like
Start over?
pretend
What?
like that wasn't a thing, right? Pretend that didn't
Exactly.
happen, right?
Exactly.
And
Exactly. And so
yeah.
while I felt that was really sage advice,
Yeah.
that threw me for a loop for about a
Sure.
day.
Sure.
Mhm.
Only
That
a
was when I
day.
was emotional.
I know, right?
No,
More
actually,
than a
it
day.
was two. It was two. It was two. Because something else happened to add to it, honestly. And I had to I was just like, why do I feel like this?
Mm.
So the one of the very interesting what would you call that? Juxtapositions
Mhm.
or like awkward things about where I am is that I have a
Mhm.
lot of time
Mhm.
to do reflection and
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
tap into myself and figure like what the heck is that? Like when you're working, you don't have as much, at least me,
Yeah.
I never spent as much time thinking, why do you feel that way? Or what's going
Mm.
on? And so
Mhm.
when I found myself feeling sort of down, I was just like, you need to pause and figure out what that's about. And then I realized, oh, it was that thing that person said.
Mhm.
And I had to affirm myself and remind myself of what I believe about my future. And yes, the job market sucks, but geez, Dawn, there's something out there for you. Like I had to do the pep talk.
Yeah.
You
Mhm.
know what I mean? And just believe that like the seeds I've been planting, because that's what I've been doing, are gonna have bear fruit for me one day
Yeah.
and all of
Mhm.
that. And so yeah, it's tough. It really, really is. And then I think Jeff alluded to this earlier. And I said to you all that I took some time to figure out what's meaningful for me.
Yeah.
And I've really been trying to find that work.
Okay.
Mhm.
So let's say a decade ago I was laid off and I applied for everything.
Mm.
Anything that could possibly match me, I applied for.
Mhm.
That didn't work. Right? And so this time I said, I want to spend my energy well.
Mm.
I want if when I get a role, I want it to be one that I'm really this is the meaning. This is
Yeah.
right and
Mhm.
and which is why I guess when the workforce person said, "Well, you might just need to do something," that it was almost like, dude, why are you trying to come against all of my
Yeah, what you're
Mhm.
trying to do.
yeah, my purpose or whatever? But he's just doing his job. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so if you add that element in, well, that makes it even tougher for someone like me. Now, not everyone's out there doing that, but I did have a moment today. I was getting my annual mammogram. TMI, folks, but I was getting my mammogram,
Like,
Important. Get them done.
and we're hiring, right? A year or two ago, I would have just ignored that sign.
Uh-huh.
Today, I was like, so what kind of jobs are you hiring for?
yeah.
Oh.
This is at the radiology center, y'all. I am not a
Yeah.
healthcare professional, but I was just like, is it like the job that you're doing right here at the front desk? I mean, I know
Yeah.
I could do that,
Yeah.
Mhm.
you know? And I just thought to myself as I drove off, I said, I said, there's so many people in this world who don't have the luxury of doing what they really want.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Yeah.
Many of us, and I say us because I've done it,
Yeah.
got to
Yeah.
do what you have to do.
Sure. Sure.
So
So
my
let's
plan
sit
is to
there in
take
that
that little,
moment, right?
yeah, let's sit
We're
there.
having some real talk, and it's raw, and I appreciate that. And I want to like just sit here for a moment in it and talk just a little bit more about that, right? And then we're
Mhm.
gonna I promise people we're gonna pivot to how do you find comfort in this and move forward in a
Yes.
positive way. But it is really important to kind of sit here in this, you know, emotional state of the despair, the uncertainty of kind of what your future holds. Love to get a little bit of that perspective from you, Dawn, around some of those things you've done. You recently I saw on LinkedIn you got your green apron. For
Yeah.
those who don't know what that means, you've earned your green apron at Starbucks. You're a barista,
Mhm.
and that
Mhm.
was a hustle. And when we did the
Oof.
little prep talk before this show, you were really expressing like the hard work that folks like that do for what little wages it's done for.
Yeah.
So I'd love to kind of sit there for a moment, especially from you who have such experience in cybersecurity and well
Right.
careers. What's that been like? What's that
Yeah.
you want to talk about juxtaposition?
Oh
That's a
my
Yeah.
gosh.
juxtaposition, right?
Total. So it's an interesting place.
Yeah.
At that job, I report to people who are not even 21.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's not a problem for me personally.
Okay.
I'm one of those people who understands, like, when you're the follower, you respect the leader,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
I understand that they have experience I don't have. And just because I have tons of experience in one place doesn't invalidate theirs.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they have the utmost respect from me.
Sure.
But yet and still, every once in a while when they're talking about, oh, when I turned 21, and I'm thinking, oh my God, you could be my kid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I'm just quiet. I'm just listening. I'm doing my job. You
Sure.
know what I mean? That has been such an interesting place, y'all. But at the same time, what they manage,
Mm.
like the amount of tasks that have to get
Sure.
done in a shift
Yeah.
is amazing. Within
Yeah.
maybe the first month, and I work part-time, so I'm
Okay.
not, I'm only there like 3 or 4 times a week, 4 or 5 hours at a time.
Okay. Yeah.
But I
Flexible.
recognized very early on, those people are underpaid.
Mm.
Mm.
Like, I'm sorry. Like, this is wrong. I literally was
Yeah.
like, this is wrong. They're not paid enough. The number of things you have to do in one
Sure.
shift. And if you're like
Mhm.
a supervisor or something, they're doing all of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And there's so many jobs like that that they're doing so
thank
much,
you, Sasha.
so
That's what I was
underpaid
about to
for.
say. It's
But yeah.
our capitalist society, whatever you
Yeah.
want to call it.
That's
We're
just
not
one
going there today.
example. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
one
That's another
example.
topic for another day.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And I told, I don't know if I said this to you, Jeff, but I
Mhm.
had a moment when I was on a closing shift and we were cleaning. So they do like this big cleanup thing. And I got down on my hands and knees and I had to scrub the baseboards in the bathroom.
Mm.
And I thought, what does this all mean?
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I because of my faith, I do tend to like sit back and say, what is the lesson I'm supposed to be learning?
Mm.
Right? No, I didn't get myself there. I didn't get myself laid off, et cetera, but I'm here.
Mhm.
And for my future, because I also recognize and I believe that it's temporary,
Yeah.
right? What am I going to take from this experience? And so one of the biggest, and at that point I was like, well, geez, I have been so privileged. That was the
Mhm.
first thing I thought. Because
Sure.
no, really, I'm an immigrant to this country and that's
Mhm.
the first time I've had to work a job like that.
Mm.
I recognize that's a huge privilege.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Not undervaluing all the work I've done, right?
Of course.
Education, all of that stuff, but I've been privileged to not have to have done that. And so that was the first thing that I recognized. And the other thing I recognized was my gosh, there's so many people, and you all know about this because of this is the work you do, that are trying to get into our field, right? They're marginalized, underrepresented, whatever. They may be lower income, stuff like that, and they're working jobs just like that. And let me tell y'all, when I get home from a shift, I'm done for. And I'm not working full time, I'm working part time. Now, granted, I'm older, so that could be a part of it. And I thought to myself, how do people who are juggling sometimes more than one job like that,
Yeah.
how did they have time to build a home lab, for
Yeah.
example?
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what everyone says when, well, you don't have work experience. They're like, well, build a home lab, do projects. When are they going to
Yeah.
have
Study for
time
this
to do?
certification. Do that. Like, do this. Yeah.
How do they have the bandwidth to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
or if
so
you have
then,
family, like how do you work it in with the family
and then
obligation?
if you have a
Home
family, if
obligation.
you're the caretaker, there's
Oh my
so many
gosh. It's so much.
variations.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought, I'm just one person, right? But if I could preach this message of like, y'all, we got to do something else, in terms of earning your way into this profession. Like, there'll be people who just won't make it in
Yeah.
because, well, they're just trying to make the ends meet or do whatever like that. I don't look, and these are big questions, right? These are big things, but that was one of my biggest lessons. It changed my perspective, or not change, but it gave me perspective
Sure. Sure.
on those people, right? So if I encounter mentees in the future and stuff like that, like I will never take that for granted ever again, you
Yeah.
know? So those have been some of the bigger lessons for me working at Starbucks, but the people are really nice. I love their open communication style. Like I didn't always have that in corporate,
Hmm.
right? They believe in like having the hard conversations.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, let's pull you aside. We need a connection, blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
That was tough. The first
Mhm.
one I had, I was like, I got a master's degree. What are we talking
Yeah.
about here?
I
But
want to shift us. I do
yeah.
want to shift us. But before I do, but I have to ask because I like coffee, and
Yeah.
I'm talking to a barista, a part-time barista.
Mhm.
What's your favorite drink to make? The most loathed drink that you have to make?
Oh, okay. So interestingly, I'm not there. I'm very new. I finished training like in November. So I
Okay.
barely get to do the bar, which is what they
Okay.
call where
Okay.
you make the drinks.
Yeah.
But every once in a while I do. I'm not good at it. I'm really slow. Because you got at Starbucks, you have to multitask.
Yeah.
They're like, you need to multitask, Dawn. I'm like, but how can I multi anything when I don't even know the first task? Like,
Sure. It's still so overwhelming
right. I'm just like,
and
huh?
new.
Right. But my favorite drink to drink right now is a caramel brulee latte.
Okay.
You would think that I know how to make it because I like it. But every time I go to make it, I'm like, how do you do this again? Because it's like the whole concoction, right?
Yeah.
Now they have a the most interesting drink. So the easiest drink for me to make with my little experience is like they're like refresher lemonade type
Oh.
things.
Also delicious, but yeah.
Once I finally figured out not to make it in the cup and do the blah blah blah, I was like, oh, okay, this is easy because they give you a nice little. They give you a shaker cup, they call it, and it tells you
That's all
all
the
the.
measurements. Yeah.
Yes, I was like, oh yeah, I got this right. Someone ordered a gingerbread iced gingerbread chai latte or something, right? And the challenge with the chai is that it's not coffee. So I have to remember I don't need espresso. Right? I just need chai. And then that one drink is not made like the other chai latte.
So
So
I get a vanilla chai latte all the time. So it's
that's a pretty easy drink to make, but
Okay.
this is not made that way. And so the thing about Starbucks and the drinks are pretty much they're all made mostly the same way. It's just a variation on the flavoring and stuff like that. So once I figured that out, initially I was like, oh, okay, that helps a lot. Well, this drink isn't made like a regular chai latte. So I'm starting to make the drink, and my trainer is like, no. And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, no. And I'm looking at them like, I don't understand. They're like, no, this is made, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, why? you
Yeah.
know? And then I made it. Then maybe like 2 hours later, I went to do it again and they were like, Dawn, this is the one. I'm like, oh, this is that drink.
It's evil. You'll never look at a gingerbread man the same way.
But it
Yeah.
seems like after I made it, I was like, oh, this might be a nice drink to try. You know what I mean?
I love
Do
it.
they have
Love it.
do they have the timers there too? Or like do they, because at least like when I used to work in a coffee shop, they would have timers on it.
Timers
Uh
on your, like, how
oh,
long it takes you
for
to
like,
make the drink.
yeah, they would be like, hey, you got to get this in 2 minutes to like somebody. And it's like, oh,
They don't have a timer like that, but they have like a drive-through timer.
oh,
So like for the drive-through, I think it's
mm-mm.
like 40 seconds. It's
Oh
really
yeah.
short. And
Man,
so they don't put me on the bar during
that sounds
peak
tough.
time.
You're the milk runner at that point. You're just
That is, I literally do what they call support. I just like make sure there's ice and help the people that are doing the really hard stuff, I guess you could call it. One time they had me warming food, and even there I was like slowing things down. They're like, okay, Dawn, we're gonna let you do something else.
but it's a learning experience,
It
You're
Yeah.
learning so much from it. And I think
is.
I'd love to like kind of like move into this next segment with that, right?
Yeah.
Like we talked about the market. It's tough right now. You have to be, stand out. You have to use your backdoor access if you have it, or create backdoor access to kind of get even seen as a
Yeah.
candidate in the cyber profession right now. Um, but what one thing I really liked about your story, and when we met, months and months ago, but um, was that you were doing other things. You were keeping busy. You launched a podcast. I think you volunteer for the Cyber Cannon, right? Like, I
Mhm.
think as well. Like,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about the other things you do to wouldn't differentiate
Occupy your
yourself, but
time. Yeah.
expand your network, expand your exposure. You
Huh.
know, give us the comfort. Like, what do you do for comfort in this
Yeah.
chaos?
So, it's so interesting. I got invited to attend the SANS Difference Makers Awards, which was last night.
Oh, yay.
And the reason I got invited was because of my podcast.
Ah.
So we'll come back to that.
Love
Okay.
that.
But I saw Sunil Yu is his name.
Oh, I
He's
know
like
Sunil. We worked together at Booz Allen back in the day.
right. And I saw him and I was like, I need to say something to him, but I wasn't sure. But when we were like leaving in the lobby, he was there with his wife. Um, and I said, well, I'm just gonna take the opportunity. I said, Sunil. And he said, yeah. I said, hey, I'm Dawn. I said, last year I saw you, I think it was a Cloud Security Alliance summit they had, and he was presenting about something. But it didn't matter to me what it was because he showed this framework.
Yeah, the cyber defense matrix.
I don't know if it was that.
That was one of his big things. Yeah,
It might
he
be,
wrote a
but he
book on it.
showed, but he did write a book, but he showed it, and he might use this framework in the book, but in essence, there's a quadrant, and in the quadrant, it says when you have uncertainty and when you have chaos, you need to take action.
Hmm.
And it was like, oh, Eureka, Dawn. You are sitting in the depth of uncertainty. You need to take action. That has been my motto. Every time I start to feel paralyzed, I remember, take action, take action. And I told him, I said, I don't think you meant for that to do what it did for me, but I needed you to know that it did. Like, I had nothing, for me, it was nothing to do with IT or cyber. It was my personal life. Like, this was last year. Like, I was in the depth of like feeling really low and like, what should I do? And da da da. And when I saw that presentation, I said, I literally took a screenshot and I think I might have printed it. I made a little circle. I was like, uncertainty, action. And so in a lot of ways, I've been finding comfort in that action. Now, I will not lie to you and say there have been moments when I'm looking for a little post that I had that I posted for myself. When it's like, when is this action going to pay off? You know what I mean? But I don't remember what I attended, but I wrote these on a little post-it. I always knew this would work. So I have to remind myself, like, the things that you're doing, I always knew they would work. And the other one was, I can't wait to see how this turns out. Right? So I'm embracing a lot of experimentation, something I never used to really do before. Experimenting a lot. And then I also wrote, every action I take is leading me to greater in my life. Just can't always see it, right? So the podcast, I started before I knew I was getting laid off. I think this was the beginning of me converting like to this meaningful existence. Not that my existence wasn't meaningful before, but just in a different way. And I found so much joy in the podcast. I don't get paid. It's literally an expense. Right? And sometimes I'm like, what
It's
are
an
you
investment,
doing?
Dawn. It's an investment.
That's true, Jeff. It's an investment. And it is, because like I said, the podcast is how I got to Difference Makers Award last night. And I met several people. I met one gentleman and he was like, Dawn, he was like, just keep on doing it. You might, you never know who you might meet, right? So that's the other thing. It's like taking these sort of chances, doing something different, because you don't know who you might meet. You don't know where it will take you. But I think the big thing for me in terms of comfort, it has been, and I had to remind myself when I spazzed out from the workforce guy telling me like, you might need to just take any job. It was like, you need to pause. You need to reflect on everything. Like, just because you don't have a particular job doesn't mean your life has nothing. You have done, I have to tell myself, like, do not underestimate what you're doing with that podcast. Right? Because there's a consistency to it. It becomes things to do.
Yeah, keeps you active.
Add that structure. Yeah.
Right. But sometimes when you have just things to do, you can lose the value, because you're just doing the things. And
Just going through the motions.
Sure.
yes, exactly. And so I think it's important, everyone, to find comfort is that you need to really pause. And if you are taking action, that's the first thing I want you to do, is to take action,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that is. And don't put too much expectation around it,
Mm-hmm.
because then you end up a little disappointed sometimes.
Sure.
It doesn't always work out. And I'm speaking from experience. This is why I'm saying this. And then you get paralyzed. You're like, oh, it didn't work. The whole thing is a failure. No, not true.
Yeah.
There's value in the experiment, in the trying. Okay. And so the podcast, I volunteer with the Cyber Canon, which is, and I'm probably going to say this wrong. And Rick Howard, if you hear this, please forgive me. They're like the cyber professionals, like place to find really good books or something. It's not the right thing. But if you
something
want
along those lines.
if you want to read cyber books, go to the Cyber Canon. There's loads of books. People have done reviews. They have a Hall of Fame. It's really, really great. I decided to volunteer with the Cyber Canon, but I'm volunteering as a business development representative.
Okay.
Nothing like cybersecurity, right? Nothing.
Yeah.
But I wanted to learn something else.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured if I'm going to spend some time, learn something else, right?
Yeah.
So I've done that. I continue to mentor. What else have I done? I do a newsletter weekly and things like that. So lots of little things, lots of expanding my network. That's how I met Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
Through Sasha, because I was on Sasha's profile and saw something. So a lot of curiosity. And the reason I was spending so much time expanding my network is because for a good part of my career, I didn't. I felt weird to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until now, a lot later, that I realized, geez, I should have been like building this community for myself. I had to actually change the language for me. I call you all my community. It feels more heart-centered for me.
Sure.
Less transactional,
Mm-hmm.
And so I spent a lot of time doing that. A lot.
It's super important. I mean, you mentioned Rick Howard.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
all worked with Rick Howard at N2K
Yeah.
Networks before he
Yeah.
retired from
Wow.
N2K. So, it is a community. It's
Yeah.
Yep.
there are thousands of jobs out there and professionals, and there are technically openings, as they say. But at the end of the day, we all kind of know we are less than 6 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon here.
Absolutely.
And
It's
so it
very
is so
small.
important, if you're talking about action,
Yeah.
that part of that action is about creating those side doors, those back doors where you don't have one, or those opportunities like your podcast that will lead you to those next opportunities, or those, meeting Sunil or whomever it may be, who will be like, yeah, Dawn,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I got something for her. Or I can introduce her to someone where I know that,
Sure.
hey, maybe this would be a thing that she'd be interested in or a good fit for. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's hard because everybody is working their own, game there.
Mhm.
But I love
Yeah.
the actions that you've taken around your situation to kind of create some stepping stones or some
Mhm.
foundation blocks where you get your feet stable, so you can kind of start seeing like what is the path across this
Yeah.
Yeah.
little river that I got to cross. So,
Mm-hmm.
One.
I love that.
Yeah, and
Will, you're gonna
I
say
just
something?
yeah, sorry. I really enjoy the because I was thinking about like as we were talking about kind of the first half of this show was how do you conquer that analysis paralysis almost, right? So
Mm.
like I come from a very like largely military family, and there's always well, I've retired from the military after giving over 25 years or so of my life to it. What do I do now? What's my
Yeah.
identity? All that stuff. And that just taking action, and
Mhm.
it's almost like again it's like what purpose does this serve and stuff, and it's almost like when you get into a job, and especially as you kind of get promoted and stuff, you become more and more specialized or more and more
Yeah.
like but then when you kind of get that taken away, you almost have this like I always imagine like when Bruce Lee's like be like water, right?
Yeah.
It
Oh
can
no, that's really
yeah,
good, Will.
where it's like
Yes.
it could be calm, it could crash, and it always can fill the vessel it takes itself in, right? um and so I thought that was just really cool where it's like you kind of build that universality in a way, and you can kind of just almost see the application of what you did on a grander scale in a lot of ways. And then also I thought it was just incredibly inspirational how throughout this whole journey that you had, you didn't lose the understanding of how much value you and your knowledge and your experience has, because when you go into networking and stuff, so I'm fairly young, and so there is a lot of I don't like how do I get my foot in the door and stuff like that. I don't have much experience, I don't have
Yeah.
something like that, and I've done very well for myself, thankfully. I gotten very lucky, especially some of the people in this call are parts of that. um but at the same time, it's like you come away from whatever you're doing a bigger person, a better person, and you always have something amazing or, just in profound to say, right? Or at least something that could really, it makes bigger and bigger waves the more and more you do, right?
Yeah.
Regardless of whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so it's just that kind of, maintaining that understanding that your voice truly matters and it holds authority and it holds weight is something that I thought was just great. So
Thank
I just want to kind of like put that in while because I know
Thanks,
you guys are
Will.
talking the real the real experiences and stuff here. But it's just that kind of stuff is just amazing to hear. It really
Mm-hmm.
is.
And speaking
Yeah.
of profound, Will, and since you have the mic, there's a great opportunity for us to shift into some profound thinking with our
Oh,
next segment called This Week I Learned. So, if you
oh,
would do us the honors of starting us off, Will, with something you learned this week that you could share with everyone.
sure. Sure. I'm like it's so I'm not gonna lie. It's been so I do you guys know about Nightshade? Like not the plant, but there's like a AI thing. So
Only night
basically,
thing I've learned was from a childhood of Knight Rider, so
oh,
that's
okay,
going to age
okay,
me.
yeah.
I remember Night Rider too.
Well,
But yeah,
so
tell us about some shade.
so the Nightshade thing is like it was developed by I'm forgetting what it was. I want to credit them. But it was a university. They were just a bunch of master's students basically going and saying, how can we poison photos? So that if they were ingested in AI training, they would
Wow.
be able to affect the thinking of it. And so then that sent me down a large rabbit hole. Basically, apparently there is different spaces that pictures and video work in. So there's like pixel space, there's latent space, there's feature space, there's stuff like that where it's like, oh hey, when like pixel space is the stuff you actually see, then like latent space is like when you encode it into numbers and stuff, right? And kind of a lot of the funky stuff you could do within that, where it's like
Hmm.
there were people who so there are sometimes video LLMs, right? Where they will, you put in a video and you go, hey, is there any violent content on this? And then it'll watch through it, right? And stuff like that. And it'll see. is there any violent content? And it'll go yes or no. Well, so there was a group, and it was like the last, I think it was like last month or something. It was something. Oh no, this September. So like 2 months ago, 3 months ago, where they were able to essentially embed various, I guess, violent images and stuff and videos into a video, and then have it actually be scored by the video LLM as, oh, this is completely safe. This
Oh,
is completely
wow.
whatever, right? And they basically were talking about all the different strategies for that. And so I was like, okay, this is interesting, because I love AI as an analytical tool. I love AI or LLMs as an analytical tool. I really don't like the fact that there's so much generation that kind of just ruins a lot, right? So when we talk about the job market, right, there's a lot of times, like I talk with people who are like doing hiring, and they're like, there are so many like bots. There are so many
Yeah.
fake, resumes, and there's, it's just that kind of stuff. So that's what I've been learning, and it's been really fun. And yeah, there's
Awesome.
a lot.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
It's scary too.
Yeah.
it's very scary,
So
but we can fight back.
But
We can
like
fight
prompt
back.
injection, but maybe picture injection or video injection or something.
Yeah, it's
like that.
kind of like that. It's meant to, at least with the Nightshade stuff, like not the video LLM thing, but the Nightshade stuff. It was very much like, okay, how could, because again, there's like a lot of people who will illegally like scrape the internet for
Mhm.
To train their stuff. It's like, oh, how can you protect your art? Well,
Okay.
you just run it through this thing, and all of a sudden, what you see is the art, but what the computer sees is right, like so just a mess essentially. So, I'll have to like send it at some point. It's really cool stuff though.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'm really
anyways.
glad you brought that up, because as you were talking about it, it sparked something for me about last week that I learned that was really cool that I totally forgot about. So what I was going to talk about was the proposed budget for the defense cyber budget, and how that's a 4% increase from last year, and what that means. But that's kind of boring, and don't want to talk about Congress and budgets. But last week, so I'm pivoting. 11th hour pivot here. Last week, and every year, I try to volunteer at my son's school when they do their hour of code. And recently, the hour of code has been updated to be hour of code or hour of AI. So I got to do a fourth grade session around coding for how they're teaching robots to move and stuff like that. It was just super cool to watch young kids like
for
playing
sure.
around with machines. But the hour of AI segment on Wednesday of last week was so cool, because they were teaching AI stuff to these kids. And particularly they were teaching around machine learning. And I realized that, hell, I could even learn machine learning, as scary as it is. So there's this really cool tool out there that they use for the school. It's called Teachable Machine. And if you haven't checked it out, it's for machine learning for dummies. Like, you literally can like program and teach your machine like what we're having fourth graders kind of teach what colors things were, right? So they'd upload images of like, this is yellow, and then these are red things, and these are blue things, and then you can bring objects into the webcam, and the machine will tell you, yep, that's blue, or that's it won't recognize things you don't really teach it very well. So if you're bringing an orange in there, they're going to be like, ah. So you can continue to teach the machine with more complexity over time. So you could say, okay, well, now we've done colors. Let me do shapes. Let me do, humans versus not humans. So for anybody who's just kind of like fascinated with machine learning, but doesn't know it and wants an easy way just to kind of conceptualize how do you teach machines, and how easy it is. Teachable Machine is really cool. So plug to them. I'm not getting any money, but if they want to send us some money, we'll take it.
Sponsor us.
We'll split it up between the four of us. But I thought that was super cool, and I think it's going to be something that I would be interested in using, and you can actually use some of the coding for your own projects. So check it out for anybody who's interested and wants to learn a little bit of machine learning on the side, and a very easy way to do it.
It's really good because it's like it demystifies it, which
Yeah.
because I again, it's not AI. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it's not artificial intelligence. It's a big model, right? It's like,
Yeah.
come on, guys. But a lot of people wrap it up in the whole like, oh, it's this, and it's like, I mean, a lot of people can use like do machine learning and stuff. Once you start going like, hey, what's Bayesian statistics and all this weirdness, like, but like but like actually using it and stuff. Oh man, it's
Yeah,
so
that's
fun
super
too.
easy. We taught
So
it to like
fun too.
recognize him versus recognizing me. So it would just like I'd get in the
Mhm.
camera and it'd say dad, and then you get in
Mm,
the camera and say his name. So
nice.
it was really
Oh
cool.
yeah.
So
Oh
with
yeah.
that, Dawn, why don't you give us something? What you learned?
Yeah. I learned that there's a middle management shortage looming. I saw it
Really?
last week and I started like diving into it because it's my thing is like leadership and career progression. I was like, oh, duh. Yeah, it would be because they're some of the first people to get laid off.
Hmm.
But what was really cool about the articles and things that I read, and I'm actually going to do a episode of my podcast about this, of course, is they were just talking about how to retain your middle managers and then train up the younger generation. But they also were saying that a lot of, I think, was it Gen Z, maybe, they don't want to be managers. I thought that was interesting,
Really?
but not surprising, honestly, but very interesting. They're like, no, heck no, we don't want it, it's too much. Right. So that was a cool thing that I learned, I guess you could say, or was exposed to. um And it'll be interesting to see like where we go from a workforce perspective in terms of that.
Must have been like a yeah, because I'm thinking about like there might be an overcorrection in the fact that like because I just remember with like Meta and Google and stuff like that, they're like we have too much middle management. Like there was a lot of bloat because they just went through insane hiring sweeps and stuff like that. And so I'm like I'm like that's interesting because if it was like I don't know. I'm like that. I gotta look at that. That sounds really cool. I'm like, oh my gosh. And also
Yeah.
the like Gen Z not wanting to be managers, I think is odd. Because I'm Gen Z, so
I think
I'm
it
like,
was Gen Z.
really?
I could be wrong. Yeah, they
It
were saying that a lot of them
kind
look
of
at
sounds
middle.
like Gen Z though. It sounds like a Gen
It
Z thing to
does.
do. So I'm
I feel
like,
like Gen
oh.
Z were like the first generation was like, we want to be happy, and that's the most important thing in the world.
Yeah. I
Like
don't
if
want
I
that
am not
extra
happy,
stress or responsibility.
I'm not staying on this job. Are you
Yeah.
serious?
It's gotta be the internet or something like that. Because like
It's not reality.
no,
So
no, no, no.
much.
I'm saying the internet
Oh,
caused that. The internet's
Oh.
like, I want to be happy, right? I want to, this is the short-term gratification or
yeah,
whatnot.
well, they
But
say that they
I
saw
don't know.
like the previous generation sort of struggle through the recession and all of this stuff
Mhm,
like that, and they're looking at like then the trauma of that for them has
mhm,
created this like opposing perspective on life. It's like whatever I do, I want
yeah,
to be happy, and that's it. But unfortunately, then that means the parents still hold the bag a lot of times, right?
yeah.
So it's interesting. But I feel like a little like responsible in a way. Or maybe that's the wrong word, but it's like okay, we gotta have. They need to be prepared. They need to move up. It's just you have to, right? So I'm like,
Mhm.
that's why I have to do the podcast now. I'm like, okay, we gotta talk about this, y'all. What do we need to do to get Gen Zs on board? you know, they gotta take our place at some point.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Pipeline's important, really
Yep.
important.
hmm
All right, Sasha, take it away. What do you have? Did you find
Yeah,
something?
I did. And actually, it was Dawn who kind of made that connection for me when we were talking earlier about just trying to shift your perspective and kind of be appreciative of the time that you have to reflect on your experience and just where you want to go, where you have been, and all this kind of stuff. And I think about, this time of year in general, just the end of the year, winding down. And you have just kind of people who do New Year's resolutions. And I think it's important if you're thinking about what you want for the new year to reflect on the prior year, personal life and professional. A lot of companies do end of the year evaluations and things like that. And actually, just last week, I had to do kind of a end of the year evaluation, if you will, for my volunteer position for the Lisa's Florida chapter. I serve as a director of marketing there, and so we were kind of talking about reelecting and if we wanted to, take on these positions again for the new year and our election process and stuff like that. And I found myself kind of like crap, what did I do this year? Kind of just, I think a lot of
It's
us kind of
easy
think about
to
that
happen.
process of like, you at the end of the year, you can, have to do this sometimes, whether it's personal or professional, but specifically professional, and kind of just thinking about like, how do you capture all the things that you have done? And I think, it really, one, made me make a note for myself. I should do this throughout the year for next year. So lesson learned on that. But I think it's just important, and no matter what role that you serve, to really make sure that you are reflecting as often as possible and to
Mhm.
take that time to do so. And again, whether personal or professional, but specifically talking about professional, I think it's important because if you're keeping a running kind of, and again, external, I think it's important to keep it personal, of your accomplishments, the projects, the skills that you use, those leadership moments, community involvement, kind of creating this personal portfolio of your experience. I think, related back to our conversation today, if you do find yourself in the position that you do get laid off, or maybe you're just no longer happy in your job and you want to find something that matters to you and gives you this more value and purpose and sense, and you're looking for a new job, or maybe just the pay sucks and you want a higher pay job, whatever your situation is, it's really important to make sure that you have that running record. And I think a lot of us don't tend to do that until it's time to find a new job. So making sure that you are putting a system in place, that you're doing that throughout the year. At least, quarterly, but hopefully at least, once a month. So you're doing it on a regular basis. And as soon as you speak on a podcast or do a webinar or whatever it may be, like write it down then, because you're, oh yeah, I'll write it down later. You're not going to do that. And I think, look back on your LinkedIn and kind of see everything that you did. And I think it's important to do that because it helps to put in perspective all that you've done, what your value is, but really kind of helps give you that direction of how to move forward, what you want next, and thinking about what those transferable skills are, and whether it is you're going to be trying something new, something different, or just finding something that is more of value and aligned with, your worth, your interests, and your passion. So
That's
that's
awesome.
my thing.
I think
Mm,
it's a good way to kind of close this out too, that
Yeah.
point. And,
yeah.
I really appreciate this conversation today because, the conversation itself matters because behind every resume is a human story. And right now, many talented people are navigating uncertainty, those identity shifts and career transitions. You have to do it with resilience and grace. So, Dawn, thank you for your honesty, your vulnerability, your leadership, and for reminding us that careers aren't linear and that staying true to who you are matters, especially when things get hard. And to anyone who's listening who's in the middle of it, you're not broken, you're not behind, you're not alone, even when it feels that way. So, if today's conversation resonated with you, we'd love for you to stay connected. Follow SkillRex, the Cyber Talent Matrix on LinkedIn, subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts, and like or comment to help others find these conversations. And also be sure to check out Dawn's podcast, Bytes, Bits, and Brilliance, where she continues these honest conversations about careers, growth, and inspiration. So thanks for spending time with us today, and we'll see you next time on the Cyber Talent Matrix.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.